Welcome to the Feminist Wellbeing Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Dozier, non-diet nutritionist, certified intuitive eating counselor, and cognitive behavior coach. And I've earned a PhD in diet culture. And at the age of 40, after 25 years of a dieting career, I said, no more. Fast forward to today, I am here to guide you on how to feel damn good by reshaping your mind and not your body. In this podcast, we fight diet culture and patriarchy by going beyond the food. And today is a great cornerstone episode. I am about to share with you a mind-blowing perspective on emotional eating that I have been teaching for nearly, 6, 7 years. I came up with this concept of flipping the script on emotional eating as I was teaching it and coaching it to my client. And that's what I want to bring you into the conversation today. I want to talk about how you can shift your perspective on emotional eating, and particularly how you can approach it in a way that will actually be empowering. Because the way we're currently thinking, feeling, and behaving as a society, as individual around emotional eating is 100% disempowering. It's victimizing. It's not solving the problem. And it's making us feel worse and missing the whole point of why we emotionally eat. Let's start with the basic. What is emotional eating? Most women that I have in my world, my listener of the podcast here, can relate to emotional eating, the term emotional eating in some way or another. And most people will tell me it's eating for comfort instead of eating for hunger, which is a good description. And I want to make it even more simpler than that for you. Emotional eating is eating in response to an emotion. I think that's pretty simple, right? The word says it is eating in response to an emotion. Now, diet culture has categorized the behavior of eating that work outside of the parameter of the plan you're on, be it calorie, be it meal plan, be it whatever plan, eating plan we're on that controls what we eat. Anything outside of the set parameter of your plan as emotional eating. So anytime when you are in wellness culture or diet culture that you eat for weight loss or health, these two system, diet culture and wellness culture, like to say anytime you eat off plan, that's a great way of describing it, as emotional eating. And I want to say that is not emotional eating. Most of the time when people eat off plan is because if they're in the case of weight loss, they're restricting the amount of food and they're eating because they're hungry. And if the restriction happened from wellness culture in the name of health, they're eating the food that actually satisfies them, that makes them feel good, that they want to eat because the plan restricted. So either way, these eating behavior that are often described as emotional eating are just bounce back eating behavior from the restriction itself. That is a whole other kettle of worm. I want to stay today in the lane of through emotional eating, which is often also described as stress eating, boredom eating, nighttime eating, when you're sitting in front of the TV and you don't feel good and you eat. Like And you eat in response to an emotion, and many of us know exactly what we mean, right? When we stress, we reach out for food and we eat. Emotional eating. I also want to address the difference between the concept of binge eating, emotional eating, and overeating, because they are not the same. So, binge eating and emotional eating, in some cases, are the same, just a different level, a different expression, a different intensity of expression of it. So, emotional eating is eating in response to an emotion that we don't want to have or that we're having, and it's so overwhelming that, like, it's overwhelming in our body, and we want to numb the overwhelming by eating. Binge eating, if we look at the pure definition of binge eating, and I want to recognize that binge eating is actually a recognized disorder, right? So it has a definition to it. So binge eating is described as eating a large amount of food in a very short period of time while feeling out of control over the eating episode. So it's a combination of eating large amount of food in a short period of time while experiencing out of control feeling. And it's a diagnosable condition. People will have binge eating disorder. Okay. There's also people who experience binge eating, but are not necessarily diagnosed with a condition, or where people will, and this was my case. In case you are new around here, I would say the last 10 years of my dieting career was binge eating. And likely would I have been recognized under medical care and like in a non-fat phobic environment, because remember, when you're fat, you're very seldomly diagnosed with an eating disorder. You just don't know how to eat, right? These are part of weight stigma. I could have probably been diagnosed with an eating disorder of binge eating because I ate large amount of food in short amount of time. That was the description. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking not about these very specific condition of binge eating. I'm talking about, I want to say, common emotional eating. And I want to address one last one, overeating. And I'm addressing that because this week, the non-diet coaching certification with my professional, we're studying intuitive eating. And we just had this big conversation about the concept of overeating. And I wanted to bring it on this podcast, openly talking to the world about it, because I think most people don't realize this about overeating. So let me give you my definition of overeating. It is not a defined disorder, so it doesn't have a specific definition. Overeating to me is 100% a word created by diet culture. Let's break down that word. Overeating. By nature, the word describe eating more than a pre-made amount of food you were supposed to eat. You're overeating a set amount of food. That's what overeating means. Now, who decided the amount of food you should be eating? Is it a portion control? Is it a calorie count, a macro, a plan? What is? Like, who decides you've now gone over eating? The only way you can know that you went overeating is because you had a preset amount of food, which means you were restricting. It's a word 100% created cause by diet culture. And I know this because I remember the days, my early days in Weight Watcher, I was told, and I remember vividly, probably was 15, 16 years old, having this Weight Watcher coach tell me, you're overeating. And damn sure I was overeating the prescribed calorie count or point they were giving me. I was overeating the point amount I should have been eating. So overeating by nature acknowledge the fact that we're restricting the way we're eating. And no surprise, we are overspending this amount and we're overeating. Okay. So when I was talking about diet culture and wellness culture earlier, when people were bouncing back eating because they were underfed or they were restricting food that they enjoy eating, that's overeating. That's not emotional eating, that's overeating. If it's eating more than they were supposed to, or eating something that at all they shouldn't have been eating. So, with that understanding, let's focus on emotional eating. People want to stop emotional eating. And I notice running a business in the non-diet field for the last 8 years. Over the years, I know very well what people are interested in. That I do a free masterclass, that I do a podcast episode, that I do a blog, anything that contains the words stop emotional eating, people are interested in. And very often, that's the entry point of people in my world. They're out there in the world thinking emotional eating should not be happening. They shouldn't be eating in response to emotion, and they got to stop it. Why do they think that they have to stop emotional eating? Because they've been told by their diet, their plan, their coach, like you're emotionally eating, and that's why you're not losing weight or why you're gaining weight. It's the fear mongering of diet culture that makes them think emotional eating is a problem. So if you click this episode, like I'm laughing at myself in my office looking at a white wall, but I guess imagine I have you in front of me. I just want to give you a big hug because, yeah, I got you to click the link of this episode and it allows me to educate you about emotional eating. But I want to say this, there's nothing wrong with emotional eating. It's the system, it's the construct, it's diet culture, it's weight stigma, it's fat phobia that made you think that there's something wrong with emotional eating. Let me blow your mind right now. Do you know that emotional eating is normal? Do you know that humans are supposed to eat food in response to emotion? It's been like that. Humans have consumed food in response to emotion forever, for as long as we can trace humans. Think about this. Who eats food when they have a celebration? Think Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthday. What do? We gather around food to have an enjoyable experience with each other, have love being expressed around the table, friendship, memories being recalled. We want to have an emotion while eating. It's normal to eat for emotional purposes. It's a way for human to regulate their emotion, a way for humans to regulate their nervous system. And I'm calling out here all the quote unquote nervous system experts, these new breeds of people in wellness culture, perusing the internet, claiming to be nervous system experts and using nervous system regulation to shame emotional eating. Shame on you. You clearly should not be teaching anything about emotional eating, should not be teaching anything about nervous system if you can't recognize that regulating our nervous system with food is normal. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox right now. Let me break it down even further. What's an emotion? Which is part of emotional eating. An emotion is simply sensation in your body, right? So an emotion is created from you looking at the world, having a perspective on the world. For an example, I always use a classic example of walking as a woman alone at night in the street, right? You're going back home. You're looking around you because you know you're in danger as a woman walking alone at night. And all of a sudden, you see somebody walking towards you that looks shady, whatever that means to you. As you see this person coming towards you, you have a thought in your brain, oh my God, he looks or she looks shady. Ooh, oh, and then right away, there's a rush of sensation in your body, right? It goes literally from your brain through your central nervous system, through your nerve ending, and then you feel it in your body, and then you decide to run, or you decide to change side of the street. The behavior of running or changing the side of the street is a result of you having an emotion of fear. Stick with me, right? You're doing that to save your life, okay? Because you're a woman walking alone at night. An emotion is nothing but sensation in the body. It's call it an electric sensation that travels through your central nervous system that is present in you to give you information. In the case of walking alone at night, it's an emotion that's present in you to save your life. Fear is there to save your life because there's a danger. Based on your past experience, based on what you see on TV, there's a danger and you better react. But in that case, it's not emotional eating. You're not reacting while eating food because you're walking alone at night in the street. There's no food. And first of all, you wouldn't eat food hoping that the food would make the shady person, change streets or change side of the street. Your brain would not think to do that. Your brain is like, get the hell out of here, right? Well, guess what? The changing the street, the running away is a behavior. Eating is a behavior. Hello, hello, hello. Cognitive behavioral coaching 101, right? It's like neuroscience. Eating is a behavior. It's something you do as a result of something you feel, an emotion that you experience. So what if instead, just throwing this out there, what if instead of shaming emotional eating, we actually appreciate it? What would happen? What would happen if we got curious about our behavior of eating as a result of an emotion and we investigated? We're like, oh, look at that. I'm eating right now. Let me go in my body because that's where emotions are. They're not in your mind, they're in your body. Let me go in my body and feel what's going on down there. Oh my God, it feels tight in my chest. Oh, like my shoulder, I want to curve in. I'm like tight. What's going on? And then I started to think, what's going on in my life right now that I'm so stressed while I'm eating? I'm like, because emotional eating is not something to be shameful. It's just neutral. It's a piece of information about what's going on in my life. And now instead of spending time ruminating about how shameful emotional eating and how bad of a person I am, I'm like, wonder why I'm stressed. How different would our life be? Think about if there was no shame around emotional eating, but instead curiosity and compassion. Our life would be significantly different. So to me, emotional eating behavior is brilliant. It's a gift. If we can only shift our mind and not buy into the narrative that eating emotionally is bad, right? We get rid of that diet culture, wellness culture language. We're like, I'm interested by emotional eating. It's something that I'm curious about. It's something that's neutral and that leads me to ask myself bigger question that would actually lead me to realize that, I don't know, perhaps I'm not in a good relationship. And the reason why I'm stress eating, watching TV at night beside this person that is not making me happy and that I should be out of that relationship because I'm not shaming emotional eating and I'm actually curious, I can start asking, I don't know, perhaps I'm not in a great relationship right now. Perhaps I'm working too much. Perhaps instead of watching TV, boredom eating, emotional eating of the boredom, perhaps instead of watching TV, I need to go out and socialize. Do you see how powerful then emotional eating? Do you see the gift of emotional eating? That's what I teach. That's what I bring every one of my coaches through this, where I bring every one of my clients to become unshame emotional eating, become curious and investigate. And here's what happens. When you don't shame emotional eating and you don't create more emotion, because here's what happened. I didn't say that, but let me play the story for you. Imagine you're eating in front of the TV and you're like eating the chips and like, oh my God, I shouldn't be eating the chip. Oh my God. And now you start feeling guilt and you start feeling shame. And now you want to eat more because not only do you have stress in your body, now you have shame and now you have guilt. So now you have 3 emotions to numb using food instead of the first one, which was stress because of work. So the origination of why you're eating the chip is because you're stressed at work, but now because diet culture taught you to shame it, now you're dealing with guilt, with shame, and then with stress. 3 emotions to numb, meaning you're going to eat probably a lot more because now you have 3 emotions to eat. And I'm not saying that. I know some of you will say, oh, she's saying if we solve emotional eating and we listen to our emotional eating, we'll eat less. No, that's not what I'm saying. Well, that's what I'm saying, but that's not what I'm promising. I'm just saying you will have a higher quality of life and you will feel empowered. You will feel like you actually have control over your life. There's an episode I'm building on that I'm going to do in the next few weeks that's about the difference between power and self-control, because that's a big concept that I teach to my student is like, why do we seek control? And probably the episode will be called something like the shift to feeling control, something around that in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. But if you want to feel in control in a healthy sense, in a sense that's productive for you, in a sense that will induce well-being, it's not about controlling with restriction and like calculation and like schedules and all of this. It's actually feeling in power over yourself without control. And when you shift your perspective on emotional eating, that's where you go. You go into a place where you feel in power of your emotion because you're not judging them. You're not judging the behavior associated with it. You actually like, whoa, these are just clues. Let me investigate and find out what needs to upgrade in my life, what needs to change in my life. And then your life becomes bigger, better, and better, and better, and better, and better, and closer to the life you want to live because you've listened to the cues of your emotion. That's all your emotion want. They want to be learned, they want to be listened, they want to be felt, and they want to guide you. They want to guide you towards more joy. They want to guide you to, your body does not want to feel stress. It wants you to listen to the stress so that you can make the change upstream in order for you to not feel stress anymore. And then you feel more joy, more compassion, more happiness, right? More productive emotion, more, I don't want to say positive, but better emotion that makes you feel better because you're listening to the stress emotion and making the changes upstream. So in a way, when you shift your perspective on emotional eating, you take back your power over your emotion. So that's my perspective on emotional eating. That's how I teach it. And the reason why I have such a different perspective, I want to acknowledge that, is because, yeah, we do in my world use the 10 principles of intuitive eating, but we also combine cognitive behavior coaching, which in its essence has us getting more curious about our emotions. So we combine that with the process of intuitive eating, and we get to a place where we have this very innovative and powerful view on emotional eating that actually becomes productive for food and beyond the food, which is the name of my company. Okay, folks, hope this was a service to you, and I'll see you on the next podcast episode. Hey, my sisters, if you are loving what you are learning on the podcast, you have to come and check out our feminist mentorship masterclasses and our internationally recognized non-diet coaching certification. On our website at www.stephaniedote.com/shop. This is where you can get the individual coaching and the support to take the concept taught on the podcast to the next level, embrace our well-being in a way that will expand our collective freedom and power. Come and join myself and other women to learn how to reshape your mind, not your body. I'll see you there.